Well, a very good evening to you. You are watching this in Focus. Remember, the world around you is changing every minute, every second. So it's important for you to be inspired and motivated. And today, we intend to do the same on our show, This in Focus. We are joined by an entrepreneur, an extreme entrepreneur, so to speak, an adventurer. He's also a world-renowned speaker. He's written many books. I take the pleasure of inviting Mr. Peter Sage on our show today.
Stephanie, absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, first up, people find opportunity and necessity on their way to pursue an entrepreneurial skill. But what do you think really defines an entrepreneur? Is it just someone who builds it on opportunity or necessity?
What defines an entrepreneur is many different factors, but some of the predominant ones are really, the first is the ability to embrace uncertainty. And there are no guarantees in life, there's no certainty in life. And to be able to do that in a way that allows you to take advantage of opportunity is one thing. Having the courage to make that decision is another. And also, if you look at opportunity, if there isn't the opportunities, you create them. If you're looking for opportunities, you can spot them. So it's really about harnessing the power of being able to take risks in a commercial environment that allows you to add value to other people, and having the courage to swing the bat and go do it.
Well, governments after governments, when they come in, they find it very difficult to tackle unemployment, especially youth unemployment. And right now Sri Lanka is struggling with it. And the quick solution they come up with is recruiting them for public service, but that really cripples entrepreneurship, creativity. How do you think the government should really tackle this issue of unemployment, especially youth unemployment?
I think they should look at places like Tunisia and learn from it. Because the reason that the Arab Spring started in the first place in Tunisia a few years ago was because, okay, one person set fire to themselves, and that was the match that struck the gunpowder. But what was underlying on that is the government had invested in education, and they'd overly invested, which is usually a good crowd pleaser. Education for our children, let's all build more schools. And that's great if you're going to follow the traditional model of educating people under the assumption there's a job waiting for them after it. And of course there wasn't. You had all of this youth, all of this unemployed people coming out of universities with thousands of dollars of student debt, qualified to be a barrister, and can't get a job in Starbucks as a barista. And so there was a huge amount of frustration. So because the government had invested in one side, which is education, and not what causes the jobs in the first place, which is entrepreneurship, the entire government was toppled. The country went into a state of chaos, followed by Egypt, followed by Libya, followed by Syria. And that should be a wake-up call to any government to say that, look, if you want to compete in a global economy right now, it has to be out with the cronyism. Those days are dead. And start investing in entrepreneurship, because the future of your country is going to be driven by the innovation of the children who aren't going to have traditional jobs, who aren't going to believe in your ability to tell them to follow a 4, 5-year, 10-year education plan, so they can end up with a piece of paper signed by somebody they never met to tell them that they're intelligent enough to get a job that doesn't exist. That doesn't work. So government should really invest in supporting entrepreneurship, or they're going to find themselves in an archaic situation where they get either voted out or overthrown.
So do you suggest that they should break away from the traditional education system?
I'm saying it needs reform. Traditional education system was built upon the wrong premise. It was built for modern society. It was built upon teaching people how to pass tests and work for somebody else, from a post-industrial revolution model that was designed to kill creativity and foster compliance, discipline and conformity, so that when you go into an industrial world from a feudal system, what happens? You don't mess up on the machine, you don't hurt yourself or other people, you daren't question authority, and you have a complete level of autonomous role that helps the machine move forward. Well, in today's world, that doesn't exist. The entire fundamental reason that, or principles that modern education system is founded on no longer apply in modern world. Now, that doesn't mean to say that if you've got a particular aspect of a job or a career you want to study and go into, of course you need to learn your tradecraft. If somebody's going to operate as a surgeon on one of my friends, I want to make sure that, and so does he, that they've been to medical school. They haven't just, winged it. So there's an aspect to that. But traditional education, thinking that you're going to go through learning outdated information that doesn't apply in the modern world so you can get a job, so you can have a safe career, those days are gone, and if you think they're still here, you're in Disneyland.
Well, speaking about crippling creativity, technology has really helped us. At the same time, it has stopped us from being creative, especially in this modern world. Do you agree with that?
No, I think it has raised the game. I think it's made what we used to previously call creativity obsolete. And just like every 4 years at the Olympics, new world records are broken as we evolve physically. It's the same creatively. If you are now, we can now think of so many more things to do because of technology. All it is that the old level of creativity no longer applies. It's like trying to have a Formula One race with 1940s cars. And today, there's no competition if that was the case. The two are side by side on the track. So no, technology has created new platforms for enhanced creativity if you keep pace. And if you don't keep pace, then you're going to complain that your version of creativity no longer applies. But the reality is, you no longer apply.
But people are swamped with information every day, every minute. There's so many information that comes to us that sometimes we, like you said, are obsolete for certain things. We don't tap into things that we need to tap into. Is there a specific or particular reason that you think this happens to all of us in the country?
Yes, the internet right now shouldn't really be called the internet, it should be called the opinionet. Because 99% of the information is trivial and has no bearing. So what most people are doing right now, they're starving, they're drowning in information and they're starving for wisdom. And because of that leads to a level of confusion, that gap is filled very quickly with entertainment. So people don't know what to do, or they study so much they become overwhelmed, which leads to confusion, which leads to inaction. So they learn so much they do nothing, they feel frustrated, so then it's easier to watch something on YouTube. Whereas if you make a decision and ask better questions, what is it that I would want to study in order to follow something I'm passionate about? Everything's available now. You can learn the Harvard Business School curriculum online for free. You can learn any skill. Siri will teach you sales and marketing these days. I mean, it's a world we live in is incredible. But learning how to choose the information you want rather than sit there and hope that it falls on you in the avalanche of useless stuff that is flooded at us is a decision and a skill set. It's an intention. So, I've got news for people. You don't get to vote whether or not you're going to be programmed. That's just part of being human. We're a 24/7 adaptation machine. See, in a body, we get it. We go to the gym, our body will adapt. We go to McDonald's, our bodies adapt. Same thing. On the inner world as well. So, if we start to understand that we will be programmed if we don't choose what comes in here, then by default it'll be things like news, media, traditional things that have other people's agendas and interests at heart rather than me taking charge of what I want to put my focus on.
Well, how do you really reinvent yourself? We have the answers after this short commercial break. Well, welcome back. You are watching Biz in Focus. I'm Stephanie Lazarus and I'm in conversation with Peter Sage. Well, right before the break I asked you, how do we choose what is right for us? In this growing economy, in this growing world, in a fast-paced world, it's really tough to tackle that issue of how to choose what is right for me. What do you would like to say about it?
A couple of things on that. One is, indecision is a decision. In other words, if you don't choose something, you've chosen not to choose, and that means you're going to be at the mercy of whatever comes along. So the ability to choose really comes down to the ability to ask yourself better questions. Questions direct the focus of the brain. If you stand there and say, why can't I decide what to do? Your brain will come up with an answer. Because you're confused, because you're no good, because you're useless, because your teacher said you'd never amount to anything. Whatever it may be. It'll find an answer. It's programmed to do so. But if you ask better questions, if I could only spend the rest of my life doing one thing, what would it be? If I knew it was impossible to fail, what would I do? What would I risk? Or something like, if my heart really is in the game, what lights me up, what juices me, what juiced me the last time I felt alive, and start focusing your attention there, you'll start finding your answers as to what you want to turn into your career and your passion. If you ask questions like, what will give me the biggest chance of success, then I got news for you. You're not going to find the passion required because you're chasing certainty. and there's no certainty. If you're starting a business because you think it's the best industry to be in, even though you're not excited by it, at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's time to get out of bed and go, fight the battle, because you've got to make wages and payroll on Friday, you're not going to have that sense of spark that'll get you through those times. So I'm a huge believer in follow your heart. I mean, take your brain with you, but follow your passion, follow your heart. You can turn anything into a commercial success these days if you just focus on just the right aspects of how to put that into a commercial framework. And that's simple, that's entrepreneurial tradecraft. Formal education these days may help you make a living, but informal education will help you make a fortune. And for entrepreneurs, that's available everywhere, whether it's learning sales and marketing, time management, cash flow management, HR, people, relationships, all of that stuff's available. It's just part of your tradecraft. So learn your tradecraft and then use that to apply to whatever industry that turns you on.
Well, speaking about industry that really turns you on, people in Sri Lanka, especially the youth, they're getting into technical services or even technical startups. And it has become a trend now. But there's very little room to break into different sectors of entrepreneurship, of different startups. Why do you think this trend is? Is it because of a copycat? Is it a copycat reaction, or is it because people don't know how to be creative, or are they really following the footsteps of another person?
No, a lot of it comes back to what I said earlier. They're following certainty. They're thinking, oh well, I want to be an entrepreneur because the alternative right now holds no promise. For only a few people that will have a traditionally successful career these days, because most careers are becoming obsolete by the week, just as technology supersedes the ability to replace things that we've held on to as sacrosanct for years. So from that perspective, Stephanie, I think it's more of an inner world than an outer world game. It's the belief that it's hard to break into different sectors. You show me a sector, I'll show you how to build a business in it. That's simple. And I'm a simple guy. I dropped out of school at 16. But understanding that it comes from a place of asking questions like, how can I add value? How can I solve this problem? What's a better way to do this? And being open to that. Setting an intention that you want to go into a particular sector. Then the brain will start looking for matching up opportunities. That's how it works. Using both the reticular activating system and the amygdala, two parts of the brain that work in noticing what's in your outer world and filtering it because you voted on it being important. So if we don't tell our brains what we're looking for, they're not going to pick it out of the 4 billion pieces of bytes of information a second it's processing.
Well, numbers are something the world looks at. If you can make your sales up, if you can sell a product properly, rather than the passion. So in the world of numbers, in the world of price tags, how can we really strike that balance to keep that balance of passion and the numbers?
The world is not run by numbers. Your left brain is run by numbers. Wall Street may be run by numbers, but why do people buy in the first place? They don't buy on numbers, they don't buy on price. If your market's buying on price, they're educated on the wrong reasons to buy. Most people buy on emotion, which is feeling. Most people buy on passion. The reason that you buy something predominantly is not because it makes sense. It makes sense to buy a cheaper car for a lot of people, but they don't want that. They want something better. It makes sense to eat a salad, but people still want to supersize their fries. So emotions are far more powerful. So when you say, sales are based on numbers, no, but those sales are based upon people's decisions based upon emotion. So if you can tap into that, right, then you have far easier access to developing a market because you're working with what really drives business rather than the logical reasons why people buy, which isn't the reasons that are going to drive your sales.
But reinventing yourself has been one of the recurring themes in most of your teachings. What is the root of it? Is there a...
Well, you have to understand that business is a vehicle. It is a vehicle for a business owner to project themselves into the world as entrepreneurs. So they have a way to add value and generate income as a result of adding that value. Most people make the mistake of thinking entrepreneurs about making money. Money's got nothing to do with it. Or if you're chasing money, you'll chase your tail. In fact, the reason most people don't have enough money is because they're chasing it. You're chasing the effect. See, money is nothing more than the arbitrary medium of exchange used to measure one thing, perceived value. The only time you got money is if you gave something for it first, whether it's 40 hours a week, a product or a service. So sitting there saying, I'm going to go get some money is like sitting in front of the fire saying, give me some heat and then I'll go fetch you some wood. No, you've got to add the value first. So reinventing who you are, if the business is nothing more than a projection of who you are, which is all it ever is. I work coaching CEOs for many years of $100 million companies, and there's never a problem with the business that is not a problem with the CEO. So you can learn the right techniques in marketing and strategy and all the latest stuff to keep ahead of the curve. But that's not the issue. The issue, Stephanie, is who is applying those techniques. Because if you've got unconscious blocks to success, if you're self-sabotaging, if you have a poor relationship with abundance and don't know what money really is, if you have a poor relationship with time, then you're going to run into all sorts of problems you'll blame the business for. I'll give you a very quick example. Somebody comes and says, oh, I need time management. And say, why? Oh, because I've got so much on my plate, I need to schedule myself better. Well, if you go to a traditional business owner or coach, they'll teach you time management. But I'm not about that. I want to understand what's behind the layers of the onion. So you ask a few questions, and it may be a common pattern, is that they actually have an inability to handle rejection. They don't like saying no to people because they can't handle rejection. So they keep saying yes too many times, so they keep taking on too much. So they have too much on their schedule, so they think they need time management. Or they have an inability to let go and delegate because they're micromanaging, because they're petrified of failure, because they make the mistake of linking their self-worth with their net worth. So therefore, if their business goes down, they feel that they're a failure, not just their business is a failure. I failed many times, but I don't feel a failure. My business is what failed. I succeeded through having a go. So if I have the inability to let go of control, then I'm going to micromanage everything. I'm going to get too busy and think I need time management. See the difference? Yeah. So it's always an inner world game. So if you can reinvent who you are, then how that translates into the business is always where the rubber hits the road.
Well, is there a quick fix or a quick strategy to reinvent yourself? We'll have all the answers when we come back. Well, before the break, I asked Mr. Sage, how do you reinvent yourself? Do you have a quick strategy for it?
Well, there's a couple of quick things I would share that would be useful, I think, for the watchers and the viewers. And that is that the first one is identity. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with how you define yourself. Tony Robbins taught me that. And that means your identity. Why do runners run? Because they're runners. Why do smokers smoke and have a hard time quitting smoking? Because they change their identity from a smoker to a smoker who's quit. In other words, I'm a smoker, but I've quit, so I've got this push-pull. You change your identity to becoming a non-smoker, and it's a lot easier. So if you're an entrepreneur, but you don't see yourself or you don't have the identity as an entrepreneur, then you're going to run into trouble. There's a difference between having an identity of, I'm quitting my job and I'm starting my business, versus having an identity of, listen, I'm a dynamic, resourceful entrepreneur that handles challenges for breakfast and has whatever it takes to make it work. If you see yourself as that, you're going to dig deep and find the answers. If you say, well, I'm kind of running my own business, so I'm hoping to be a successful entrepreneur, there's a different identity shift. Same difference between someone saying, oh, I work out at the gym, versus I'm an athlete. Two different identities will give you two different types of workout. So identity is a huge part. Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur? Regardless of what's out there, you may not have a business yet. But I'm an entrepreneur, and that means I'm therefore compelled to go start a business. So identity is a huge part. Do you have an identity that says, oh, I'm no good, I'm this, I'm that, or no? I can handle anything. Who are you? The second thing, or the second most important part on reinventing yourself, is what is your why? Why are you doing it? Is it to prove to the world you're good enough? I tried that game for many years. No amount of businesses will make you feel good enough. If you're chasing your first million to prove you're good enough, I've got news for you. As soon as you get it, you still won't feel good enough. Because now you'll need 2 million in case you lose the first. It's a perpetual hamster wheel. So why are you doing it? But if you're doing it for you, if you're doing it because you're trying to show the world that you should be respected, limited effect. If you're doing it for a reason bigger than you, I'm doing it to be able to add value to my community, my parents, the world, my clients, my customers. You're ethnocentrically focused, not egocentrically focused. You'll be able to move forward. How do you know that? Look at something like the New York Marathon, the London Marathon. There's more people running that for the first time. I'm not talking about the crazies that do it every year. But the first timers. Way more people run a marathon for the first time for somebody else or a bigger cause than would ever do it for themselves. All the people running for themselves, most of them dropped out before the day of the marathon. They quit training after 3 weeks. Yeah, focusing on yourself is limited. Focusing on a cause bigger than you, because it's more important than you, it serves the greater good, will propel you forward. So reinvent who you are in terms of your sense of identity, and reinvent the why you're doing it. Is it because your school teacher says you weren't good enough, you want to prove them wrong? Is it because your parents expect you to do this? Is it because your brother's more successful and you're trying to prove a point? All of those reasons have very limited power. Doing it because it's something you want to do, it's your birthright, you're something you were born to take to the world, and you're going to swing the bat regardless, is a far different way to translate that energy into the business and be successful, or a better chance of being successful, than doing it because you're trying to cover up your ego.
Well, interestingly enough, I was able to pick up on what you just said about the push and pull entrepreneur. What's the difference between the two?
One is motivated, usually to get away from where they're at. It's like setting goals for most people. It's like walking into a train station and saying, oh, can I buy a ticket? Say, yes, certainly. Where would you like to go? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you're open. I'd like a ticket to not here, please. That's where most people are at in life. They set goals because they don't want to be here. So motivation is like fuel in a car. It can get you forward, but it runs out. Always needs topping up. Inspiration is different. Motivation is, I want to go away from pain. Inspiration is, I am compelled to move forward for a bigger reason than myself. So the push-pull effect, both are useful, but the away from pain is only temporary until you feel that you're far enough away from the pain to relax. Then you kind of lose your mojo. But being compelled forward, inspiration, being inspired means that I don't care what it looks like today. I'm not interested. I'm on a journey, and I'm going to keep going until it looks the way that I want it to look. And if that takes my lifetime or not, I don't care, because I'm in the game.
Well, Peter, what really keeps you motivated when you wake up and look in the mirror? What do you think of yourself? As in, if you've come a long way, you've come a long way in the whole teaching and lecturing, but for you to believe what you teach, what really keeps you going?
Well, it's not motivation, because as I've just said, that has a time limit. And yes, sometimes the alarm goes off 5 in the morning. Occasionally you need to be motivated to get up. But that, as I say, within a week that's going to run out. Inspiration is different. And what keeps me inspired, what keeps me doing what I do, is essentially hearing the messages back from a lot of the students around the world that apply some of the philosophy that I teach, and hearing the difference that it makes. And I'm very blessed now that I get to live my passion. I've built businesses for nearly 30 years, and now I'm full-time teaching. And a lot of the courses that I do, or a lot of my philosophy, a lot of my stuff on YouTube that I put out for free for people, it really inspires them, and hearing the comments back is what gets me out of bed every single morning to go do it again, so that hopefully I'm able to leave a little thumbprint on somebody's life in a more positive way, and that their life is better because they crossed my path.
Well, researchers say that some cultures are more conducive for entrepreneurship than the others. Do you really agree with that statement?
Of course. Your environment is your biggest influence of your behavior, and your cultural environment especially. So if there are certain countries, for example, in Africa, where the work ethic has been considered lazy by many people that review the culture. And one of the reasons for that is because food grows year-round. You've got to walk out to get some food, you pick it off a tree. Doesn't matter what month it is, there's no reason. There's abundance. You go to Northern Europe, where if you don't work hard during the summer, say 100 years ago, or the autumn, and save for the winter, you'll starve and you'll freeze. So there's an inbuilt work ethic difference between your environment on how it conduces you to want to go out and participate. And that's, that's cultural. Now, some people, like in the Middle East, for example, that were very poor and now very rich, a lot of them, I lived in the Middle East for many years, a lot of the parents coming from a place of previous scarcity, now having abundance, want to give that to their children because they don't want their kids to have that scarcity and hardship that they had. And of course, what does that usually provide? Provides an environment where they're not challenged, they've got everything on a plate, and there's no work ethic. So I think the biggest cultural determinant of whether people get out there and really make an effort of creating the life that they deserve has to do with a response to the challenge of the environment itself. There's no need to be challenged, there's no need to work. So necessity is really a big part of that, and of course that can be cultural.
Well, you've spoken a lot about peer groups and how important it is to have a good society and the people around you, a good energy around you. Well, how important do you think it is to have a really good, strong structure around you?
Vital. Yeah, if you hang out with 10 highly motivated, entrepreneurial people that think, how I can, not why I can't, that are always up to something, that are on purpose with something, that have that energy, that spark, you'll likely become the 11th. If you hang out with 10 recreational drug users that watch daytime TV and eat McDonald's and Domino's pizza, you'll likely become the 11th. That's called the law of conformity, and it's just the flow of the river. You can fight the current, but eventually the current will win, and your environment is your current. So one of the fastest ways that you can change the direction of your success and the speed of that success is by changing the people that you hang around with. I mean, love your family, but choose your friends. And not from a place of ego where I'm better than them, that doesn't work. From a place of loving people for where they are on their own journey, but making sure that you're purposeful about who you want to spend your time with, because it's going to influence you. I created my own peer group, something called the Elite Mentorship Forum, because I couldn't find a decent peer group for people to participate in. And that's become a huge part of my life, or the Master Circle, which is where we go away 4 times a year and have a huge amount of fun, but holding each other to a standard. So if you're going to upgrade your peer group, choose people that inspire you, that will hold you accountable, that will help you up, that can be a midwife to your dreams, rather than somebody that feels threatened by you trying to be more successful and therefore want to pull you down.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Peter Sage. It was a wonderful 23-minute conversation. Well, I hope you enjoyed it today, and I hope that you were inspired as well, just as we promised earlier on in Biz in Focus. Remember, the world around you is changing every minute, every second, and it's important that you be inspired and motivated. Meet us next week, same time, same place. This is Biz in Focus.